back to Colombian Influence. This is a podcast where we talk about adoption using our own experiences as adoptees as well as others in our community. We are excited to be back with Chapter 3 of the Primal Wound book series.
Let's dive in. We previously have discussed chapters 1 and 2. Hopefully everybody has been kind of connecting with the discussion questions that we've been posting as well. Just kind of trying to spark some, thought regarding all of that. So, like Erica said, we're going to be diving into chapter 3 today. The title of that is The Loss of the Mother and the Sense of Self. So there's a lot to dive into with this particular chapter. So I guess let's just look at the sections that stuck out to us most, talk about some things that stuck out to us, and move from there. So to start off, I guess in this particular chapter, I don't know about you, I have a lot of things underlined. It's kind of ridiculous how many things. Actually, the first section being a break in the continuum of bonding. I know we had both kind of mentioned a couple things in that. One thing in particular, really the only thing that I guess I wanted to highlight in this was the plate metaphor.
Yes.
Which, let's see, where is the actual...
Page 30.
Okay, so basically with the plate metaphor, it's stating, like, if you break a plate, glue it back together, it should fit well, but there's always going to be, separations as far as how that works. If you think about, like, a mosaic, for instance, breaking something, it looks different regardless of the pieces still being there. And the last sentence here says, there may always be a feeling that the plate can again be broken, that separation can reoccur. So basically with that, it's just kind of discussing, again, like the paragraph following that is saying that his trust in the environment has been shaken and his sense of self has been compromised. Something is broken, something is missing, and it will never be the same again.
I wrote that one too.
Yeah, that's like everything that I kind of wrote on this particular page. I'm not gonna lie, this particular chapter, it took me like a few days to digest because it was just like, there's a lot to it very quickly.
Well, that's what I was going to say in the beginning of this. Just like take your time with these chapters. It is a lot to take in, even when we've gone through this journey and read it before. Again, like we've said, it's a lot. And every time you read it, I think it opens a new perspective on different things. So just take your time and definitely find that support if you need it, because there are things that make you really dive deep into like your emotions and your feelings, and I know that's hard for some people to really discuss and talk about, and it was hard for us. And we're just now, coming out of that fog in a sense, and understanding all of it. So,
which I will say, just kind of going back to what you said about the fact that we are reading this a second time, I decided, because the first time I was just using a black pen, I'm using like a purple pen this time, just to see the difference and what things I'm noticing.
I changed my color too.
No way!
Yeah.
Yeah, so like for instance, some other things I've underlined, and then in purple I have exclamation points on the corner and stuff, but so it's just like, it's clearly, you're going into it and feeling it a different way. So it's, I don't know, I feel like a book like this, you'll read once and there will be a lot more to kind of unravel later on and kind of figure out. So that's kind of just starting off to kind of preface the whole chapter. I think that's a really good way to kind of view the chapter as a whole.
Absolutely.
Is using this metaphor of the plate to kind of figure out, like, well, what is this whole chapter discussing? Another section for me, I guess, was the section following it, was the Premature Ego Development. Basically, sorry. The next chapter. The next section. Whatever. Oh, it's funny. I don't know if this part stuck out to you as much. I wrote a ton.
I have nothing highlighted, nothing underlined.
Are you serious? Oh, wow.
Literally nothing. And
what?
Kind of looking over your notes on it.
I'm excited to hear what you have to say then.
Yeah, I just want to hear your perspective. And I don't know if I just wasn't, I don't know. I just literally nothing really stuck out to me to be like, yes. And so when you go over it, I went and highlighted something else when you were talking, because I didn't even think about that first section going back. I only was on the second paragraph of the one you read.
Oh, yeah. See, I mean, the second one for me
was just at the end.
Yeah.
And so, it's just very interesting. So people can see, she was talking about this first, paragraph, and I was on this second one, and it's kind of saying the same thing, how adoption is that plate, but
yeah,
I just love how our perspectives are so different on all of these.
Well, and actually, that's what I was thinking of in this second section, the premature ego development. Because what I noted here was that this section is discussing the differences in developmental theories between different psychologists. Mm-hmm. So the first mentioned in this chapter is Eric Newman's basically theory about this, saying that mother and infant are one identity as the child's life begins. And it's the separation that creates the wound that we're discussing. Mm-hmm. The other theory is by Daniel Stern, and that disagrees that the identity is developed by this bond, but it's more so that the infant realizes the need, and I'm just kind of going off of what I'm getting from this. It's not word for word, so I guess take this for what it's worth. Basically is that the infant realizes the need for being self-sufficient that much sooner because they don't have that caregiver to hold this responsibility for them. And the reason I had such a lot of this is purple that I'm highlighting instead of like in my black pen. And I was noticing, like, when I was thinking about this, I was like, maybe this is why you and I feel these certain ways. Mm-hmm. Like, because, I mean, these are obviously just theories, but it is, I mean, theories come from somewhere. Right. You know, they come from experiences that people have. And I personally I feel so much more connected to that, where Daniel Stern is saying that the identity is, or I guess lack of nurture and lack of a caregiver holding this responsibility. Yeah. I feel like I identify with that so much more. And what stuck out to me here was also the quote that many adoptees never feel as if they can count on anyone. They have to be self-sufficient in life. And that, like, the chapter goes on to say more about, you know, that you can obviously have those relationships. You can have that with your adoptive family, and obviously I have that. But, I mean, people who know me that are watching right now, and you know me, it's like, this is, I don't know, being self-sufficient and independent is, like, rings so true to me.
Can you say that quote again?
Yeah.
And what page is that on? Since I don't have anything highlighted.
It's like, on page 31.
Read that? I was just
right
like,
in the middle.
Whoa. Okay.
Middle of this paragraph. So that quote is, many adoptees never feel as if they can count on anyone. Mm. They have to be self-sufficient in life. Mm. And actually another thing, just kind of following that, the chapter after that is kind of discussing parents adoptive parents observing their children. And this is stating, this can often incorrectly signal that the child is adjusting well to his environment. I think, and I guess with that, it's like, I can still connect with that because I push myself to be fine all the time and basically to prove to myself and other people that I'm self-sufficient.
Right.
So it's like, this just to me, like, I feel like I finally realized, because I mean, the fact that we're reading this now for us, it's not just for us individually, it's this team effort. I'm realizing so many things as far as like you and me and like how you and I differ. Yeah. So that's like, for me, this section of the chapter was so like, oh, that's okay. That makes more sense. Like, maybe, I mean, given what you said in chapter 1 about finding out some things about your birth mom and her like breastfeeding you, I don't know if that's anything that's for me.
Yes.
But it's like, that
really
could
interesting.
Very much be, you know, something that lends to that.
Yeah.
Lends to that being true, you know, us being babies, but also just being grown-ups. Like,
and I guess that kind of goes into, I didn't want to cut you off, but
no,
into the search for the self and the false self.
Oh, yeah.
I can kind of relate those two, which I really had a lot
those
highlighted.
Were a couple, yeah.
Goes back to this of just saying, I guess I'll start with the next section is that I highlighted is the search for the self. Mm-hmm. And in here it says, the search for self, therefore, seems to be intimately connected to the search for the birth mother. Mm-hmm. Trying to find my mother is Trying to find my mother is connected to trying to find myself of love, is how Erica put it. It wasn't me, but I feel you, girl. Like, that is exactly the same, I think, for myself, of how I just felt like, you know, that void I needed to be filled. Finding myself was going to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's for a lot of cases, but not for everyone.
Right. Me included.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, because, like, that one, I read it and I, like, got it, because I feel like that's so much more the common thing for adoptees or whatever. So I was like, I thought of you actually. When
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that must be what
Yeah.
I am thinking. I should just correct the spelling being Erica and just change it to a K. Be like, Erica said this.
The
Actually,
correct spelling. Let's get Erica right and Columbia right. Like, come on now, people.
So then you had some things for the next section too, the false self, which
Yeah.
I had a few things also. For me in this section, I mean, there's a lot.
I had a lot too.
A lot, like, highlighted in this particular section. Okay, so the first thing that I highlighted is that as adults, we believe what we want to believe, and we want to believe that a child who is not causing any trouble is well adjusted. Mm-hmm. And then there seems to be just, like, more things, and actually the next chapter has a lot to offer with that as well. But, like, basically the false self and everything, they talk a lot about feeling like you need to be better so that you're not abandoned again. And, like...
And we have a quote from this one, too, that I think I'll share because it's so deep. It just makes you like, whoa. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
I definitely speak to this one, too. It's crazy how much little words or little sentences could be, like, a whole life-changing, like, okay, this is exactly where this is
putting my feelings into words.
Yeah, this is where I'm stemming things from, and it just makes me feel like I have that purpose of understanding who I am. Mm-hmm. But the main quote here was, many adoptees I've treated, most of whom did not act out in childhood, speak of having a sense that the baby they were died, and that the one they decided to become was going to be different, to be better, so that he would not once again be abandoned. They become people pleasers, constantly seeking for approval.
And in our...
We just gave each other that eye, because, like, that's us.
Yeah. Well, because, like, we have a Google Doc going so that while we're reading it and everything, we're putting notes in and everything just regarding all these sections. And my commentary just says, yikes, I feel that so hard. Like, that's all that I put. I was like, I don't even know what else to say there besides, oh my God.
And I kind of just made a note, like, people pleaser for sure, ! I never really associated that with being adopted, but it's very interesting how this...
It's like a survival tactic in that way.
Such a big section, too, so it's like, again, another thing where I'm like, okay, this makes sense of why I'm a certain way. And that they also say they can never truly bond with anyone because they are not being themselves. Which is an interesting one, because I think I do hide my identity, because first of all, I'm trying to figure out who I am, or at that time who I was, and... You still, I mean, everyone, I think, a lot of people go through identity issues and, certain things like that, but that was very eye-opening to me, and also where it talks about you have a hard time trusting others, and just, the distrust in others' motives, and kind of understanding, like, why are they doing this, or, things like that. It's very interesting to me.
Well, and I think a lot of this also, like, with what you said, it's not always necessarily adoption. It is partially just like a trauma response. And I don't know about the rest of the world out there, but like I have a lot of people that post like different quotes, tweets, memes, things like that are related to trauma. And like I share a lot of self-help therapy related things on my Instagram, for instance, and same with our Instagram. That's the kind of things that like from therapists that I often share. And a lot of these aren't necessarily specifically adoption. It's a lot of like trauma responses. Some of this being just like people pleasing. I notice that I'm often avoiding being the first person to say that something is not favorable. Like even just an example of using like you're waiting for your table at a restaurant and they said 30 minutes and it's been 40. I'm never going to be the first one to be like, oh my God, can they blah, blah, blah. I'm just kind of like, I hope nobody notices that it's been 40 minutes. Like, things like that. Or, like, just anything little that's so small, but I'm always just like, no.
Why is that?
I don't know. And it's weird because I'm like, I'm an outspoken person, but it's also like, I don't want to be the first to, like, bother someone, I guess, in some ways. Like, it really just depends on the situation.
That's very interesting.
Another thing that I mentioned in my notes here was just because I thought of this, because it's like, I say this all the time, is just mentioning someone's discussing like insecurities and feeling in control. this says Janice, who says that it's much easier for her to address huge crowds of people in an impersonal manner than to have a one-on-one, in-depth conversation with someone, knows that her people see her as a competent, worthwhile person. She doesn't feel like that inside, however. She feels very insecure and distrusts others' motives. Which, like, that end part doesn't necessarily ring super true to me. Yeah. It is probably, like, under there somewhere. But the first part, I mean, I don't know, is that me to a T or what? Like, yeah. Honestly, it's just kind of like, I've said a million times, I'm like, I would rather go on 1,000 job interviews than one first date, because I'm way better at job interviews where I can, like, say these are the things that I'm good at and that technically appeal to me being, like, a paid individual. But when it comes to me having to be vulnerable and emotional and, like, allow someone into that realm, it's just kind of like, no. Yeah. Like, that's just, like,
that doesn't happen.
No. And it's same thing, like, I mean, people know me as doing, like, theater and stuff. It's like, yeah, I can address a crowd, but when it's, like, small rooms of people, I'm like, oh my God.
And I think that's a big topic. Another thing that we can talk about is relationships.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that would be really interesting for us to dive more into. And I think there's a lot more in the book later as we go too about that. I mean, considering what we discussed in that, I think it was the first chapter with the love equals abandonment, that being super groundbreaking and just, like, realizing that. So, yeah, there's just, like, a lot going on in here. So, okay, so that's basically, did you have any other, I don't think you had any other sections that you noted.
I did.
For you. Let's see. We mentioned that sense of self. Oh, another thing. Let's see. Impulsivity. That's cute. Thank you. They're from Target. Is this what it was? Where is that? Shoot, did it not underline it? It says that I've always been who I am. Okay, so this one was more, I guess, just a quote in general. I can't quite find it right now, but it was just a really good, I don't know. I think it was a really good way to describe coming out of the fog. That quote is, "It seems that I've always been who I am, but I am just starting to be who I am. I've changed a lot in the last 7 years, but I don't think I've really changed. I've just become more myself. And changing is a becoming."
Yes, it's on page 35.
That's why you wrote it down, not me. And I was like, wait a minute, where did it go?
You're like,
page 35. I was like, you did this, and then, yeah, okay, because
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. It was right in the middle. So,
I've just become more myself.
I just think that that's really interesting because it's like I've always been who I am, but I'm starting to be who I am. Like, that is so mind-blowing. Yes. Oh, snaps for days. Yeah, no, I think that that's a really good example of it because I don't know that I've necessarily, with coming out of the fog, with I'm trying to think of when we even did that episode. Right now it's March. I think it was probably back in November, maybe earlier. October?
Yeah.
Time warp. Nothing means anything in 2021. Long story short. But I think with that episode and just like with the journey that we've been on in this like past like year and a half or so of like doing this, that is such a good description of coming out of the fog because you haven't really changed. You're just becoming more yourself, and a changing is a becoming. That's just,
I know,
groundbreaking. I love it. This chapter in conclusion, I suppose.
How did it make you feel?
I think I learned a lot from this one, that a lot of different things ring true to me very differently. I jotted a lot more notes down than before. I guess, like, simply put, this chapter made me feel like I still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And I don't want to say that that's good or bad, because it's not.
And it's kind of like what I mentioned in coming out of the fog.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ever really out of the fog? Are we continually just becoming more ourselves? And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with us understanding that we are people pleasers, like, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
That's just how we were stemmed, how things ended up for us. And
Yeah.
so just taking what you have and, you know, what you've grown with and just making it
I guess it's kind of just like grasping onto the truth and just like being okay with it. It's kind of just like settling in.
Be okay with it.
Yeah,
That's
and
exactly
again,
I
can't return to this quote enough, but it's just like I think that is such a great way to think about all of this. Is just you are who you are. It's just outwardly and comfortably showing that and like being okay with it, I think is really cool. So that's kind of like what I feel about going through it, is just I think this is a really good chapter to return to, and I'm really glad that I did. For you, how do you feel about this chapter, revisiting it a second time?
I think so. I highlighted a lot more, and I think again, just understanding that I am becoming more myself. Just going on this journey as a podcast has definitely just opened my eyes to a lot more. But I didn't really feel one way or another. It just, I don't know. It was just kind of like a chapter to me, but I did feel some more validation on different things. But nothing really like, oh my gosh, yes, compared to the first 2 chapters for me.
As far as the developmental theories, that's kind of what that's what stuck out to me as far as like a difference between you and I kind of said like I identify with one more than the other, or just like I kind of see the difference with us. Do you feel any certain type of way about those at all, or?
I would want to say both, and I was kind of really trying to think about which one it would be. So kind of the difference between those, and this is going to be our main question here. Do you connect with one of these developmental theories more than the other? Essentially, that you have either started your life with a significant bond and it was taken, or you started your life so independently without a bond that you find you do not identify with having this type of bond. And I'm sorry, can you say yours one more time? Like, what do you feel?
I mean, I feel like I identify more with starting life so independently without that bond.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, just because like I don't feel like there's, I don't know. I mean, you and I have that difference in like you dying to meet your birth mom,
right,
and knowing about it, whereas I'm like, do I have to? Like, what?
Yeah, it's more just like it's more just yourself.
Yeah,
and so that's kind of when I go back to saying both, because I think at one point I would go with started my life so independently. I mean, I've always been independent. I like what I like. I'm set in my ways. I like to have everything controlled how I want it to be. You know, so I had to understand my identity to, you know, kind of get that bond with myself and have self-love, you know, which was a tough journey to get. But then I also felt like finding out that connection about my birth mom and having her breastfeed me, kind of going back to that, you know, part of this, understanding that now and reading this again, I look at this like, well, actually, did I have that significant bond and it was taken?
I mean, I guess, and again, it's just it's a theory, obviously.
I know.
But it's like, I think for me, reading that was like, okay, so this is okay. Like, I think it was just very validating for me, again, just like being like, so I'm not like, I don't know, I feel like I'm always crazy anyway, but it's like, I'm not crazy for not wanting to do this. Like, thank God.
Yeah, so I definitely could. Fudge. I gotta sneeze.
Okay. You want to blow your nose instead?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm just gonna pull through it. Okay. So I definitely relate to both, but I think overall throughout my entire life, the independent without a bond is kind of where I was at, but I think it's changing.
Interesting. Okay, so then our next discussion question was saying, as an adoptee, do you feel as if the search for yourself immediately connects to the search of your birth mother? I mean, exhibit A, exhibit B.
I'll go first.
Go for it.
I say yes, hence the reason why I wanted to search for my birth mother right away when I turned 18. I just wanted to do it right away because I just felt like that was my connection. That was, you know, my plates fitting back together in a sense.
Yeah.
So
finding the closest to that
right,
you can.
Exactly. And I know for you it's completely opposite. And so what do you feel?
So I guess for me with this one, I mean, obviously we talked a lot about the developmental theories and everything, and I guess I feel like with my particular feelings on it, it hasn't prevented me from having meaningful bonds and relationships with my parents or other loved ones or anything like that. Like, that is not the case. But I think it has kept me like feeling fiercely independent and not seeking that bond again or whatever it is I'm missing or whatever. I think at first glance it seems really simple, and I almost feel as though like I envy those that can get that satisfaction from that, because they're finding their peace with their identity with doing this quote unquote simple task. You know, because it's not. None of it is easy. None of it is simple. But I feel like all of mine is like solo work that has to be just like figured out. And so it's just, I don't know, it's going back to what I'd said before about it being going from a 1,000-piece puzzle to a 5,000-piece puzzle. And I'm adding on just a super fun extra 500 just for fun. Like, and it's just like, it just feels really complicated in that way. So it's like, I kind of envy that feeling, because I have thought about doing that, but I'm also like, I feel very indifferent, honestly. I feel very indifferent to doing it. And I think that's when I know it's not just fear, because there is some fear to it, but I think it doesn't feel the same fear as losing a loved one that I know. And I feel like that's the difference, is where I'm just like super indifferent about it. And like, I think I get so much more from experiences with the people that I know and love, which is why I really want us to be able to go back to Colombia together. I think that would be huge, because I think that honestly would change everything.
That would almost like fit your piece
I think
together.
that would probably, that would take care of those extra pieces. 500
pieces. Back to 1,000.
Yeah, back to 1,000. It would be fine. But I don't know. I think that's my feelings with it. Again, I think this chapter was just really good for me to reread and be like, okay, we got, like, this is fine. We got this. And again, I just really want to, normalize more so the ability to, find yourself and like work through the coming out of the fog and all of that kind of stuff without feeling obligated, I guess, to search for that birth family. So that's kind of where I leave it. But
I think that's a good spot.
Yep.
So too. And I think it's fair that, again, going through these chapters, like, you're going to feel all different types of emotions. And me reading this as a teenager, I'd feel something completely different than what I'm feeling now.
Absolutely.
And so you're changing, life's changing. It's okay to have a set feeling and want to change it later. So
absolutely,
we're just really thankful to have each other and to continue to share our experiences and our feelings with you guys. Feel free to reach back out to us and share it with us.
Yeah, I think this is a great way to sum up chapter 3. Again, that's the loss of the mother in the sense of self. So, that concludes chapter 3. Be sure to, if you haven't bought a copy yet, go to our website.
What are you doing? First of all.
Yeah, you need this book. Go to colombianinfluence.com, COLOMBIAN. I'm going to spell it all day, every day. Go to our resources page, and you can go to our bookshop and purchase a copy of this. That goes to, basically the book is purchased from a local bookstore, so something smaller, and everything, which is great to support. And then also proceeds also go to Colombian Influence, so we can make sure that to keep going with our content and everything and keep discussing these. This is not going to be the only book that we do with book club, because I think this is really valuable for us and our listeners. So be sure to come back and check out more book club and also our just regular episodes and interviews. So follow, like, subscribe, share, comment, all of it.
Do it all.
Until next time.
Later.
Bye.